Hello friends, welcome back to the bench, the backend of Black Horse Repairs. So today we have a pretty simple goal. Actually, let me fill you in, because last time we left this, it didn't look like this. So the only thing that I did, I filled out the rest of the form, and I'll show you the code. But the main struggle was for this to just kind of style on every size. And I still didn't do it for every size, like it breaks at the very small sizes, but it's still fully functional. And I just don't really have an idea how to actually style it for mobile, for like these tiny screens. But the probability you'll be using screens smaller than 768, it's small, and that is the medium screen, right? And now the original system that I've been using, it works perfectly on mobile. It styles perfectly. So unfortunately my system will be a little less mobile friendly, at least for now. But the main change that I did was that I basically, this is our submit ticket form, or our view. So every element of that is in a separate component or separate element, and it receives no data, right? But now, does that mean that if you have to change anything anywhere over here, and especially like change this button, do you have to change it 5 times over here for each box? So that was mainly, oh right, I didn't show you the rest. I'll show it to you in a second. But the main idea was that no, I don't want that. So the majority are the reusable components like checkbox, header, input, next button, and text area. And they just receive the variables, much like in React component or Vue component. You just kind of give it the, what was it called, props, right? In React, yeah, I think they were called props. But basically, these are the variables, the arguments that the component requires, and some of them are default, some of them are optional, some are required. So the same for the input. So if I have to change anything in our input, which I did, as you can see, I settled on a different input design because that styling, it just didn't look right to me. Plus, on mobile, it was all over the place. So I settled on this simple design. And now the component, the elements of the page, contact information, obviously. So this will be required, right? That's why I added this required over here. And that is also an option you can give it. Which one is it? Contact information, that's this one. So we have the argument, oh, you can see it, but yeah, argument required. And that actually that does 2 things, because the main thing I was fighting with was basically how to make it into, so it basically floats correctly on every size, and that was challenging because I normally don't do that. So I'm not handy in styling. I had to learn the grid system to just kind of get that done. These are our sizes, right? So it only works for these sizes, right? Actually, for for small, it also only for these sizes. For some reason, I cannot figure out the excess. Not a big issue, at least at the moment, but no. So for this to float in the center, there is actually, I didn't know that, but there is in the header, as you can see, the padding, right, the left padding on this one is only for medium and for small, right? So it's different for medium, different for small. I didn't know you could use those based on the screen size, but it falls naturally if you have columns, small, medium, and so on. It should have occurred to me that that's how you do it, but for some reason it wasn't intuitive enough for me. Issue description and return address. We have the whole thing for the return address, also optional, and bench fee optional. So in this case, when the user selects that the user wants to pay for anything, so maybe there will be more options over here, but typically you pay the bench fee, which is deducted from your final price, and typically I use UPS and usually second day air. So for ECMs, that's $25, depending on the item size, obviously. And that is it. We have a submit button, but it doesn't do anything. For this session, what we want to have achieved, because it's already been like 8 minutes and we haven't done anything. For this session, we want this form to submit. So it's very easy session, very low bar. So let's see if we can get that done. So first thing that we need is the actual form. So I already checked if I can bake forms, and sure you can. I wasn't certain about that. What is the form for? So this is kind of my architectural goal. Maintainability. That's the main thing. That's why all these components here are extracted into. Oh, these are the flashes, like checkboxes and inputs and all that stuff, where you just define what kind of input it is and what label and name and all that it has, right? So if I need to change my input over here, then I just change it here, right? And it changes to my entire application, or at least to this form, because these components are designed just for this ticket form. But they can be reused somewhere else in the system, no problem, right? And so what form gives us is the centralized place where we define what form contains and how it validates. There is also on the form we have an execute method, but I'm not a big fan of it. It just doesn't make sense to me that there is an execute on the form, because suppose, well, right now if we submit the form and we execute the form, well, the form needs to save itself to the database, right? So the fact of executing that, we have to store the data in the database, we have to send an email, we have to perhaps create a payment request if the user checked the box, and we have to generate a checkout session. So that's already 4 things that we gotta do, and redirect the user to newly created checkout session. So pretty much 5 things that we need to do. So all that would have to be done in the form. That means the form needs to have dependency on database, the payment system, emailing system, a whole bunch of stuff. So I don't think we're not gonna use the execute method on the form, and it doesn't make sense for me, and it doesn't make sense to me for that method to even exist over there. But I'm sure it falls into some use cases, so I'm not gonna criticize that. So let's go to cake PHP bake form ticket. Ticket submission or submit ticket. I already used submit ticket, and in the area where I have my components. So let's just stick to that. And is it gonna stop on the first line? Okay, it works. And now let's find that form. Form, and we have submit ticket form. Okay, and we have build schema, validation, and execute. So execute, we're never going to use that. Validation, default, that's what's going to return our, well, this returns validator. It doesn't actually validate. So we can do validator add, I don't know, like email. That was bhr email, if I remember correctly. Right, and check a max. What is a max? I don't know. And the message we got. But email when callable. Okay. And let's, in that case, let's do this. Let's go to cakephp.org and let's go to book. And this is version 5. It's fine. It shouldn't be that. Forms, model-less forms. That is what we wanted. Okay, so it's called model-less forms. So that's pretty much how it works. We add field and name and string, and add field email type string. So what is the schema? Add field. We do want, yes, attribute is either string or let's go to the form. So let's just close everything. We can leave submit ticket and yes. So we're going to return that form to the front end, and that will hold all the information about the form. Now we already made the inputs manually, because normally you would just echo each element of the form on the, yeah, like so. But then we would have to style it using CSS. And I wanted to style everything using classes, not using native CSS. And actually all those rules that I built before, those two classes that I put in CSS, I removed all those styles and I replaced them with classes. Because, yeah, it worked on the big screens. It didn't work on smaller screens. So, okay, so our form, let's start with a contact form. BHR name, BHR email, yes, BHR subject. So these we will have. So let's check the documentation again. So you can add type, or it looks like the second argument can just be a string, which will have the same effect as this one, if I read this correctly. So let's do string, add field BHR name, also string, and add field BHR subject, also string. So these are the fields that we'll have more of these, but let's start with these. And now so this is validator email, so that should be good. Let's do this validator Minimum length, allow empty array, allow. I want to do non-empty, not alphanumeric, not empty array, not empty date, not empty string. And not empty string is bhr name. Alright, we want to require that. Is this a builder? Does it return this? It does, okay. So we can just do this. So this is called builder pattern. Each call returns its instance, so you can just chain accessors. Not empty string, which is subject. bhr subject. Subject. So these three are required now. And we probably could just do this. Save ourselves one line. Since they return instance, we will always return the instance. So execute doesn't do anything. Okay, now where is the form gonna submit? Now that we have a form, so let's go to our what was the controller? Was it in Pages controller? Success, home, checkout, nope. Tickets. Okay, so we have tickets controller, yes? Yes. Okay, that's what. So let's do our form. I'll just call it form. New submit ticket form. And we don't need event manager. I guess not. Is it optional? It is optional. Alright. And let's set form. So, because we're gonna have only one form on that page. Perhaps we should call it different, so we don't need to worry about when we add another form over here, because there's gonna have to be reCAPTCHA on this form. We're gonna use Google reCAPTCHA. Bless you. So we're gonna do this form create and form, and this form. Oops. So actually I'm gonna do it this way to show you something. This might be interesting. So you see how I spelled it with lowercase f, right? Is it gonna work? It is gonna work. Why is it gonna work? If you now push it to production, and I assume your production is not sitting on Windows like I'm using over here, this will not work. It'll tell you that it cannot locate class form, a helper form, because it needs to be capital F. And the reason for that is that it just needs to evaluate to a file. And on Windows, the capital or lowercase letter makes no difference. On Unix machines, it does. So keep that in mind when you're developing on Windows. Now let's see if our form is rendered. Right, let's get out of this view, and it's really crappy small screen. Okay, action is /submit, and it is, oh, by default it is post. Excellent. So the only thing that we want, what is the second here? Action, and let's just test it by giving it something else, just so we can see that it is, yeah, okay. But that action will be in ticket, so it'll be router URL, and we're gonna find that route by name. We don't need any arguments or anything. So this will be, what is this this one called? This one is called tickets.submit. So this will be tickets that, so submit is the get thing. We could name it the same, because here we'll be looking for a post. So if two routes have the same name but different verb, then they're perfectly findable. There's no conflict. Submit. Yeah, let's try that, because it should work. Because this one's good. If this was a connect over here, so it would accept all the verbs, all the methods, and this would be a ambiguity. And I'm not sure what the framework would do in that case, whether it would throw saying that there's an ambiguity, or it would just match the first one. Or maybe it would throw saying that it matched more than one route based on these search criteria. I'm not sure, but it doesn't bother me too much. Submit. Is it going to be the same? Because this URL, the user on this URL will only flash, pretty much flash on the user's screen, because once we go to that post action, we do our stuff, and either way we redirect. Either we redirect to checkout, or we redirect to thank you screen, right? So this is not the page that the user will stay on. Submit ticket. Let's call it that way. Just so it's, because I'm not sure if it's not going to be confusing if we have the routes named the same. Controller is tickets, and action is submit ticket, because previous one was submit page, right? Yeah, it was submit page, and now it's going to be submit ticket. So this is our post. This is what actually submits the ticket. This is what actually processes the form. Okay. Alrighty. Now we have our route. So now let's see if this renders, because if it didn't find the route, yeah, duplicate named routes. Okay, all right, so we have an answer. So even though there wouldn't be an ambiguity, in my view, there wouldn't be an ambiguity, because the request needs to be post, get, or a few other verbs you have there. So it's not like this would be ambiguous. But in this case, well, it is. So do submit ticket. Do submit. It's good to know. Do submit. Ticket, but it's gotta be tickets, yes? Yeah. Okay, so we have our form. Can we submit? We can submit. Alright, but the method is missing in the controller. That is correct. Submit ticket. And we're gonna redirect to success by default. We're gonna redirect to success, but if the user wanted the payment, we're gonna process the payment. So we're gonna redirect to the checkout session. Now, so we're gonna name this route tickets success. And let's give it a ticket ID. So that'll be truck ID, right? And in this case, let's leave it empty. Or let's do this, ticket ID empty, and we're gonna have ticket ID over here. So that's gonna just redirect us to the page that doesn't exist yet. Missing route. Ticket success. So let's go to routes and let's do builder get. So this is submit ticket, submit success, and ticket ID. So we're gonna receive the ticket ID and the URL, and the controller will be tickets, and action, not tickets, tickets, and action will be success, and the route is called tickets success. And there, and there's going to be missing oh no, still missing route, submit success. So it didn't, it couldn't match the route because there's no ticket ID. And is it because the ticket ID is empty? Let's go to, oh right, okay, hang on. Let's go here. Now submit. Yeah, it went okay. And missing method in controller, so that's what we wanted. Okay, so I was just stuck on this page because initially it was redirecting here, and I was refreshing just this page, so that's why it didn't work. And tickets controller. Okay, that's better. All right. So now let's check the validation. We want to at least validate the email name and subject. So in our tickets controller, we need to create a form. Form new, form equals new, submit ticket form, event manager, and form get data execute validate, and the data is this get request get data. But how does the form actually hold that? And validate, what does validate return? Boolean, so it just says true or false, and then we can just return that form if there are problems, because then we can read from the form object, we can read what went wrong and just mark it on the form, or at least give some kind of Well, let's actually see. So valid equals this. So if it's not valid, we're gonna redirect back to the submit page, right, with a flash. So this redirect, and the route is called tickets submit, right? But we're gonna return this, so we stop here, and this flash error, one of the required fields is empty. So this is not going to be super user friendly at this point. Oh, we still, okay, so validation did not work. So validate returned returned true. Why did validate return true if we did not have the data? Let's dump the data. Data should be empty because none of the inputs have names. So these don't exist. So this get request get data, right, and just die here. Right, it's an empty array, so we haven't received anything, as expected, because we don't have names on the inputs. So if it's all empty, when I run validate, it should count errors, and there should be errors because we have a validator that requires email and not empty string, bhr name and all that. Now let's start testing like this. Now if I didn't add that field, there should be some kind of error. No. So now I just required field that I did not add to schema. I hate when that happens, because last time I was just plainly modifying the wrong line and complaining that why does not framework work the way the documentation says it should work. And here we have a similar problem, so I'm definitely doing something wrong. Let's test our form. Test validation default. Form equals new submit ticket form. Yes, and we're gonna do form validate, and it requires email, so let's give it empty array, and this assert false, because it should return false, right? That's what we expect. and it failed because it's returning true. But now let's do the step, and let's stop over here. So errors we're gonna be returned from get validator validate. Alright, so let's step in. This is get validator, and default validator name is default. Default validator fields. We have 3 fields. Allow empty flags, BHR name and subject. Allow empty. That should be not allow empty. This doesn't make sense here. It's kind of like we never returned that validator that I wrote, right? I did create validator here, so it wasn't returned from the method that I wrote, right? No, it says validation method doesn't exist here. Let's go again. From get validator, we're gonna go to here, create validator. Let's step through here, and so method is validation default. Yes. If not method exists, then it'll just throw. The method does exist. Require presence. I think that's what's messing up here. Let's require BHR email, because the email validator might not validate if the email is empty, right? Not provided, because we're not specifically saying require presence. And that not empty string also doesn't seem to be working as expected. Now let's stop this and run the test, and now it passed. Okay, so that was the issue. And that was unnecessary 15 minutes of what was the example validation over here? Request data. Yeah, so they just did minimum length and email. But in this case, so if we don't have this, right, it still passes because it has the it requires presence on other ones. But basically, if we don't have this, right, then the email, let's try this. So now let's give it an email, but give it invalid email. Let's assert false form validate, and we're gonna give it an email that is invalid, and we're gonna give it the not email, BHR email, and let's give it BHR name rough and BHR subject, just so they're not empty, right? So now when we run it, oh, there's a syntax error. Now when we run it, it passed because the email is invalid. So it was provided, but it was invalid. But now, just to answer our question, let's get rid of this and this. Oh, sorry. This get request get data. All right. So if we now remove the presence requirement, right, it still passes. But if I don't provide an email, it will fail. Yeah. Right, so this is how it works. I didn't know that. So if you give it an email validator, it only validates if the email is provided. So email not provided is a valid email. Empty email, empty string in email, let's test that actually. Empty string in email is also valid email. Oh no, it is not. No, it's passed. So yeah, so it evaluated to false. So yeah, so empty string is not a valid email, but no email provided is a valid email. So we can just leave it empty here. The test passes. So okay. Well, that answered our question and unnecessarily slowed us down. So let's go back to submit, and now let's submit, and we have one of the required fields is empty. This should have been 15 minutes ago. We should have had this 15 minutes ago. Because now the issue is we don't know what exactly is missing on this form, right? I mean, it says over here that all this is required, fine. And that should be, yeah. But since we don't have that, so let's just quickly, before we finish this session, this awful session, let's get errors. Get errors. And let's do for each errors as error. Let's see, what are the errors? Get errors. Yes, so key is the name of the field and length, and there's an array with errors. So so error is an array as well. Now I'm just gonna, yeah, I'm not doing this right, but that's fine. Message, and let's do this. So message will be added by R, but again, this is length. Yeah, so MSG, no, not MSG, a length, so let's call it type and MSG, and message will add MSG plus like this. And let's do the message. So this will not be very pleasant here, but let's see. So first we need to also add the messages to the, yeah, because otherwise it just says this field is required and this field is required, right? So now to make that readable, we need to go back to our form and mode bool can, so that is true, and the message is email address is required. Yes, true, name on the ticket is required. So actually, if we add periods over here, we don't need to add them over there. Ticket subject is required, period. And in that case, here we don't need to add a period, we just add a space. So now when we submit again, email address is required, name on ticket is required, ticket subject is required, right? So it would be a lot easier or a lot more user-friendly if we now just added a class to this, which is like validation error or something like that. That would give it like a nice red border, and you know, that would have been a lot more user-friendly. But this is enough. You know what you did wrong, right? And it's not like the form saves. I think we will have to add a to-do over here. To-do save form state. Save form state, so the user doesn't have to start over, right? Because we don't want to force user to start over, especially when you spend 15 minutes filling out this, right? And you forgot to put the subject and you hit submit, all your form disappeared. If you do, in that case, if you do back, you should have that. Yeah. So technically you can get out of it if you do, if you do a back button. But if you don't know that and you end up here, you go to issue description and it's empty. We lost it. So that's just gonna to do some to do. But yeah, okay, so our form is being submitted, it is being validated. We only have sketch of the validation, but this is pretty much all that I determined is required. So we don't need to run any more validation on it. However, if you do fill return address, we probably want to validate that address if it's filled. If it's not, it's fine. So in that case, there's not going to be required presence, but if it is provided, we require that the zip code is at least like 3 characters long. The city at least 5 characters long or something like that. Maybe we allow certain countries or certain regions, and certain regions we don't. So maybe a kind of validation rule for that it needs to exist in the array of accepted countries or accepted, well, probably not cities, because who wants to accept certain or not accept certain cities? I mean, actually, perhaps maybe the blacklist would have been useful to some. I don't have that problem personally, but maybe you don't want to accept items from certain areas of the United States, or maybe you don't want to accept from Mexico or Canada. Could be. So I want to have a lot of options here for anyone to just kind of adjust it to how they want to use it. Alrighty, so the form is done. It submits. We have the routes and we have the structure and everything. And let's just do one last test. When I do provide required fields, and do I go to Yay page? Nope. Email address is required, and oh right, okay, yeah, because I showed you that our data is empty, and our data is empty because we don't have names on the inputs. So the data will always be empty. So no matter what you provide in this form at the moment, you always go to validation errors. That will be the subject of the next session to get that done. All right, we went a little over an hour, 5 minutes over an hour, but we lost 15 minutes fighting with the form validation. It happens. That's kind of a nature of the beast, the nature of this business, coding business. Sometimes you just get stuck on simple thing. In this case, very simple. I just didn't know how to use it. Alrighty, thank you guys very much, and I shall see you in the next one.